Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Son of All Grace podcast, where every single week we do our very best to help you, our church family, dive deeper in community. It's good to be back on the podcast with my two favorite people that I do this podcast with, Dave and Dusty. Welcome.
Oh, thanks for that compliment. That was great.
Almost.
Wow.
I was in the middle of saying that sentence and I realized I could hurt some people's feelings. I got to be really careful here. And I
Don't lie. Don't lie. We're not your favorite people. It's okay.
You can say your favorite people at 2 p.m. on a weekday.
Yeah.
So, guys, what's going on? What's what are all the things? How's your life? What are you guys up to?
Well, it's Thanksgiving week, and which means the kids are home all week. So,
Does that mean you're at the office all week?
And so I'll be in the office. No, we're going to be traveling a little bit this week for Thanksgiving Day and to see some family. But other than that, I'm in the office for a few days for sure. Sunday keeps coming every 7 days. Right?
Every single week.
Every week. So we got that. And I think I mentioned before, Sam turned 16. We finally had his 16th birthday party, and so that was fun on Friday night. And looking forward to getting him behind the road here very soon. So
it's awesome.
It's exciting.
Dust, what about you, ma'am? What do you got going on?
Yeah, same. At least one of my kids is home all week. The one that's not in daycare is because school is closed, and it's my favorite time of the year to talk about my love-hate relationship between my property taxes and how many days the school is actually not open throughout the year. And what I pay all that money for. But here we are.
But we're not going to talk about that on this podcast.
Nope.
But if you have any questions about that, it's dusty@centervillegrace.org.
That's it.
Yeah, my kids are in school today and tomorrow. They're doing the thing. So that's great. My oldest returns home from college tomorrow night. It'll be really great to have all the kids back underneath the roof. And yeah, man, it's been really exciting. I got to do a little traveling last week, which is super fun. And it's been a good time. We're ready for Thanksgiving around here.
Yeah, you've been gone on the podcast the last couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So last week, you were out in California. So you want to share a little bit about what you're doing and what you learned?
Yeah, so I think most of the church knows that I'm bivocational, which means that I work with and for the church, and then I also have my own business, which is kind of some of the podcasting, writing, and executive coaching stuff I do. So there was an opportunity for me to go to a writer's workshop in Southern California near San Diego, about an hour outside of San Diego, with Bob Goff, who is a pretty well-known Christian author. And so I spent 3 days in San Diego learning how to be a better storyteller and lean into that muscle of writing. It was a pretty phenomenal couple of days.
That's great. So what did you learn? What were some big takeaways?
Big takeaways. One of the things that struck me was that good stories have wheels. That's one of the way that they said it. Good stories have wheels, which means that you can use stories as a vehicle to take you to different places, and the best stories can be used with different outcomes in mind, right? And so maybe you've got a story about you and your dog, and you can use that over here, or maybe you need it over here, right? And so they're interchangeable. Like stories are tools to help build the arc of where you're going when you're trying to communicate a message. So that was one of my favorite takeaways. The other one was had a little bit more depth to it. It's you're the only person that can hold your microphone. You're the only person that can hold your microphone, meaning that you have a platform. And this is true whether you're a pastor or a podcaster or just a regular church attender. And you have a platform with social media in today's world. You have the ability to communicate, and you're the only person that gets to decide what comes off of your platform. And so I thought some really profound takes on that. The other thing that was probably my favorite exercise, and this is one that I would challenge both of you guys to do as communicators. They had us write out notes for 90 different stories from our life. That was hard. So 90 stories. I just kind of like went through them and just like, oh, there's this. It was a fascinating exercise to kind of curate a whole bunch of stories. And so,
How long did they give you to come up with 90 stories?
well, so it was really just the beginning of the challenge. You had to go back and finish it yourself.
Okay.
30 minutes was the window. How many stories do you think you could get done in 30 minutes if you're just writing like the framework?
Not many. Not many.
I did 17, and I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah.
So then I went back and kind of kept flushing it out to kind of create this file of stories, which if you're listening to this podcast, at some point you'll probably hear one of them, or if you probably have already heard some of them preaching, because curation of stories is a key part of preaching.
Well, not just preaching. How would you tie that in with disciple making?
Well, that's a great question. I think that having stories to help illustrate the tools when you're introducing a tool is an incredible gift.
Yeah.
So, like when you talk about the wheel, and for example, as a tool, the word is a part of the wheel. It's a spoke on the wheel. But telling a story about how the first guy that ever discipled me, introduced me to the word is a powerful way to show that introduction.
Mm-hmm.
So stories just have this unique way. Both of you guys know this, right? Like stories have a unique way of cementing an idea in someone's heart.
Absolutely. Yep. So whenever I think we're going with information, it'd be great to tie on a story with that piece of information to make it real, like to make it alive, right? That gives it life.
Yeah.
It's not just a principle, but now I'm putting flesh and blood around it with the story. I think that's powerful.
Do you guys have any practices on like how you capture stories?
I don't capture them. I try to remember them. I say to myself, this will make a good story someday. And then sometimes I remember and sometimes I forget.
Yeah, same, man. I get lost in my thoughts, and I feel like I can recall most of the stories in my life, at least have any significance. But I kind of like seeing if I can recall them in the moment when I'm writing something. But I don't write very often unless it's like for a sermon for church. Like I tried journaling once for about 3 days, and that was about all I could handle of it.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. So now I have an Evernote file that's just full of stories.
That's great.
Yeah.
No, the way I guess you keep stories alive by telling and retelling them. And, and that's why I think I have friendships that go back to like when I was 4 or 5 years old, and we still tell and retell stories of, those days. So I think those keeps the stories alive and more up front in my mind.
Any favorite Thanksgiving Day stories?
Oh man.
We've got traumatic ones. Should those be favorites? But they do make the best stories.
They do. All right, give us one.
I remember 2 particular Thanksgivings. One where I just broke up with a longtime girlfriend, and I was just depressed as could be, and spent the whole day of Thanksgiving just not around anybody, which is that checks out if you know me. But and I remember another one where I got food poisoning really, really badly. So yeah, that's. But most of the time, though, my memories around Thanksgiving are just good family hangout days, which is what you want them to be, and some good football watching, and it's a warm, cozy holiday that I appreciate more and more the older I get.
I think for me, one of the unique stories from Thanksgiving 2005, actually it was 2004. I was in Camp Doha, Kuwait. I was deployed at that point in time, and I wasn't sure what Thanksgiving was going to look like. We had just gotten there in September, and so obviously just a couple months past that. So we're still felt like newbies. And I'll never forget the moment that I walked in the dining facility, and it was just rows and rows and rows of the most beautiful Thanksgiving food. And then serving the food were the Arizona Cardinal cheerleaders.
That took a turn.
They were there for a USO trip. And so it was super cool, and then we watched football while we worked, right? Like, so the timing was a little off, but we figured it out.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So
It's great.
That's a great story, but I didn't tell it very well.
Next time, put some wheels on that thing.
Next time.
Next time, more wheels. Yeah, I have very few vivid Thanksgiving memories because it usually was pretty much the same every year, just with family. But I do remember often and I don't know if people do this. Do you guys take the turkey after after the meal? You take the turkey, you shred it, and you make cream of turkey sandwiches for dinner.
Kind of. We do turkey sandwiches, but just
turkey, not cream of turkey.
Cream of turkey sandwiches, and they were killer. So those were good.
I'm smoking a turkey this week.
Ooh, I've never done that.
I had a practice one. It turned out really well. So it starts with a nice wet brine for 24 hours, and then it's probably going to take about 6 hours to smoke.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that's a lot of work. I'm going to tell you, there's a great place that will sell you a smoked turkey at a farm up in Huber Heights, though.
I really want to feel like I contributed to Thanksgiving.
That's fair.
If it's bad, I'll be buying the pizza.
Listen, our neighbor just gave us a tip last night. Dorothy Lane Market sells turkey gravy, and it's delicious, they said. So we're going to have to just cheat and buy some of that.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. I love all the talk about family. It's a great intro into Family Sunday. Yesterday, Pastor Casey crushed it. Dave, remind us a little bit about why Family Sunday is so important.
Yeah, we are wanting to be even more intentional with the next generation as far as walking with them, discipling them, teaching them to obey everything that Jesus commanded, and that includes communion. I mean, Jesus was very, very clear. This is something that he wants us to be doing regularly as a church family to remember the most important tenets of the Christian faith, of who Jesus is and what he's done for us on the cross. And so we are always excited to have our kids in and wanting them to experience the same things we do as a church, because they're not a separate church. We're all one church. So it's great having them in there. It's a great reminder of, I think, going back to the very key fundamentals. It never hurts us to go back to the fundamentals. I know there are probably some in the church going, well, it's Kids Sunday, I'm not going to learn anything. It's not for me. I'm like, no, anytime we go back to the fundamentals, it's for everybody. We can always revisit those things, and it's necessary. So we just tend to forget so much and get distracted so often that I don't think it ever hurts us to go back, right? In golf and basketball, football, any kind of sports, any kind of athletic practice, you go back always to the fundamentals. Even the best professionals will work on their fundamentals more than anybody else. So that's what we want to do. And so Family Sunday seemed great to combine that this time around with communion because of where we were in the text, and loved giving Pastor Casey another rep up on stage, and I thought he did a great job of working with the kids and just going back to the fundamentals for all of us to hear.
Dust, when you lean into communion for your family, how do you describe it to the kiddos? Because you got young kids. When imagine somebody's listening right now and they're like, I'm just never sure what to tell my family about communion when it's all said and done. What are some of your thoughts around that important remembrance?
Yeah. It's a hard one for me because I don't know if there's been a time so far that I've been back with my family whenever we've done a communion, because I'm always up, probably on the platform or doing something from that perspective. But we're getting ready to get to that point. That's going to become a conversation here in the next couple of days, because my oldest and I have been reading through, the N.T. Wright Kids Bible, illustrated Bible stories, and we're getting into the Gospels now. We finally made it all the way past through the Old Testament, which I was super proud of him for getting through. And now we're getting ready to get into these conversations of we're into the life of Jesus, and that's going to be a conversation coming up really soon. But to me, it's just as simple as, hey, this is something that we do to remember the sacrifice that God made for us. It's, the same conversation we have when it comes to celebrating Easter. Not so much at Christmas, to me, that's always kind of the lesser important of the stories, is not so much about the birth of Christ, but we as people are really called to be kind of Easter oriented people, right? We live in the power of the resurrection of Christ. That's where everything comes from in the Christian faith. So, it's as simple as saying, hey, things that are important to us, we take time to pause and remember. Things that are important to us, we go back and we either talk about or we celebrate it because we don't want to forget what came before us. And in the Christian faith, that's kind of what communion is. It's a reminder to go back and, kind of re-practice the sacrifice of Jesus in a unique way.
Dave, any add-ons that you tell your kids?
Yeah, I grew up. I don't know if you guys were like this, or if you've heard these stories before, but I wasn't allowed. My parents wouldn't let me take communion until I was a certain age, and understood a little bit more of what it was. So I always have that in the background of my mind. I'm like, as far as what age, and is it age appropriate for everybody? At what? And so that's always a struggle. Obviously, Scripture's not clear on any of that, but we do say communion is for believers. It makes the most sense for believers to take it. But kids who have expressed some faith, like my kids, all would say they're Christ followers. So I'm like, I don't have a hesitation to having them do it, but just not letting it. I think for pastors' kids, not letting it get old or just not, as I think what Casey was saying, like you forget the importance of it.
Yeah.
So, always kind of trying to okay, let's take a moment and pause here and really I know we've done this a lot. I know we're going to continue to do this a lot as a family, but let's just remember again why this is so important and allow that to hit. Create some space for that seriousness to sink in, and that's hard for young kids, So, but that's what we need to do.
In the liturgical tradition in which I grew up in, they often used it was like a big deal to go to the communion table for the first time.
Right.
And so that was kind of it's a different mindset with my kids because obviously they're not growing up in the same tradition that I did. So having that dialogue has become a really interesting point. I always, whenever we leave church, I like to ask my kids, hey, what was your big takeaway from the day? And then we even asked Connor while he's watching online, what was your big takeaway from the day? And kind of the two big messages from yesterday that were so important was don't underestimate the importance of going to the table, and then that reminder, which I thought Pastor Casey did a great job of being like, any of us can be a Judas at any time.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, what an opportunity for Judas, like Jesus was given. I was thinking about this, just why did Jesus bring up the fact with Judas there that he was going to betray him? I think he was opening a door of, hey, you don't have to go down this road. You can confess right now. We can just get this settled right now. And he chose not to do that.
Swing and a miss.
Yep.
Good. I love that. I'm curious, Dusty, now that we're kind of like Thanksgiving week, that the week after Thanksgiving, December 1, next Sunday, what are some of the things that the church is doing right now to prepare for Christmas? And also, since we have a captive audience, tell us a little bit about the vision behind what's happening in the lobby.
Okay. Well, let me do it in that order you asked. So when it comes to Christmas, usually Christmas starts, the week after Thanksgiving, at least in everybody's minds. So unlike the grocery store and all the retail stores out there, we don't start Christmas, 2 months ago like everybody else did.
In some traditions, they would call it Advent, the season of preparation, like in some Orthodox traditions.
Yeah, and even a tradition that we came from, like we celebrated Advent, with the candle lighting and all that for years and years.
The wreath and the 3 purples and 1 pink.
Yeah. So in that tradition, you'd light the candles. 3 purples, and then I don't remember. I can't remember now. Was the pink the 4th one, or was 2 purples?
The pink was the 3rd one. The pink was the 3rd one. It represents hope, love, joy, and peace.
Yes. So if you come out of a more liturgical, more structured church background, that's probably what you're used to. And
Yeah.
typically in those traditions, you wouldn't really, sing or talk a whole lot about, like you wouldn't sing the songs that would say Christ is born, right? Because in that tradition, the Advent's the season of waiting, Emmanuel, God with us is coming. And you would sing those preparation songs. Then you really wouldn't sing Christmas songs until after Christmas Day itself. And then you would celebrate the 12 days of Christmas, which is where we get the song from. Right? So very different in kind of the evangelical church in general, where you kind of have this Christmas season. And this is more where we land, where it's like, hey, we can pull out some more of the Christmas worship songs. We decorated the lobby and everything this past week because we wanted it to be ready for the week after Thanksgiving, because that's when everybody's in that Christmas spirit.
It was cool to see. You guys the worship team did that on their practice night, and that was incredible.
They did, yeah. And Hank, who's our music director, he's done such a great job, basically canceling one practice a month and making those service project months. So, one of the challenges was like, hey, we'd love to run this worship team as another small group of the church, because it's a team that serves together. And part of serving together, and I would encourage anybody that's in a life group, or especially running a life group, to find one time a month where you can just serve, where you can commit, to being part of a community together and do something to serve back. So that was what the worship team chose to do this week. It was like, hey, we'll come in together and we'll decorate up the lobby. So, we had people bring in Christmas cookies, we ordered some pizzas, put on some Christmas songs, and just decorated that thing up. But in the grand scheme of things, to get to your second question, the vision of where we're going with the lobby, for anybody that doesn't know, is you probably noticed if you were here this past week, we had 3 TVs up. Right now, those TVs are kind of just announcement boards because its full purpose hasn't been finished yet. Ultimately, where we're going with that is we're trying to make it really easy to make a one-stop shop for registering for events and knowing everything that's going on in the life of the church in one place. That place is going to be the website, which is being developed right now. It's just not fully finished yet. But once everything is fully up to date, there's going to be a kiosk with an iPad registration stand right in front of every one of those TVs, and whatever's on the TV, you can go to that iPad and register right there. And the whole point is ease of communication, right? One of the hardest things for any church, especially one that's trying to figure out how to grow and take those next steps, is how do we make it easy for people to know what's going on in the life of the church? And to do that well, you need one source of information. Kind of traditionally, we've had a lot of different sources of information. We put key people that are in charge of each of those ministries as the contact person. What we need to get to is, hey, one-stop shop where to anything the church is doing, you can register right on the website. You do that, you get all the information you need that connects you with that key leader, and we make it really easy to know what's going on everywhere in the church. So that's kind of the long spiel on where we're going with the lobby. We want everything in the lobby to reflect that ease of use and just point everybody to the same place.
I love it. Dave, when you think about the Thrive campaign and where we're trying to go in 25, we talked a lot about that yesterday during Family Sunday, because the next generation is so important. The lobby remodel has kind of been a part of that. I'm wondering if you can kind of bring that larger vision together for the church family who don't get to listen to you talk about it as much as Dusty and I do.
Yeah, one of the things I see as for a thriving church is connection, right? Like people, and this is why a rally cry is no one walks alone. And so what we're trying to do in every environment, in every space that we have, is getting people better connected together. I like to call them kind of like the idea of micro connections. The more micro connections we have, if you think of a tree and the root system, the better the tree is going to be able to thrive and grow and flourish and produce fruit. So we have amazing people here from 0 to 109 years old or whatever, and I think we need to get ourselves better connected. So lobby space is one of those things where is it flowing well? Is it people can get connected to the events during the week? Do they know what's coming up? All those kind of things fit with that. The youth with the adults is a huge thing. I had 2 people express interest after watching the videos and hearing from Casey say, "Hey, I'm interested in maybe jumping."
Hey, that's incredible news.
I love that. I love that. So people are out there and people are going, I have some time, or I can make some time, and just it's not even about making time. It's about what are we doing with our life as far as leaving a legacy, pouring into the next generation, making sure they not just hear the gospel, but we can walk alongside of them and help them grow in their faith and stay connected to the church, because we're losing so many of our young people by the age of probably 16. Usually when 16-year-olds get their driver's license, they begin working. They're already probably doing sports or other activities and hobbies, and we just kind of lose them as far as real connected. So the better connected we can get them before that age, the better. And that's what we really want to see happen at Grace.
That's also why we're doing that December 11th encounter night.
Exactly.
Right? It's to try to build in some, like if Sunday doesn't always work for you and you're not sure you can make it, December 11th, 6:30 p.m., we're going to do an encounter night. We really want you and your life group to come. Like, come with the people that you do life with and connect with them, share that moment. There's going to be interactive prayer time in there. The prayer team's working really hard on some of that stuff. The worship team is working really hard on their part. I can't think of a better way to prepare for Christmas and to celebrate the birth of our Lord than by coming and spending time with him. It's such an important task.
Yep.
Yeah, and if I can tag in on that, man, I know we've been kind of planning this in the background, and like the worship night events are something we want to do more of in the future, right? We've done one that we kind of didn't really advertise. It was kind of low key. But like when I think about where the culture of our church is going, one thing that we need to become over time, and I think we're getting there more and more, but we need to become good worshipers, right? And that doesn't mean, being expressive during the songs necessarily. It does mean, hey, coming in with the expectation that God's going to move and we're ready to respond to that, whatever that looks like. So we did the last one. I was really encouraged by just the amount of people that showed up with, 1 week of advertising only internally to the church, not making it a hard ask. But I think the goal for us is that we do these, at least once a quarter, and just get into this regular rhythm of incorporating the prayer team, the worship team together, and just creating environments where we can have space for God to move that doesn't feel, super programmed, where there's a lot of just contemplative space there that we can encounter God in a new and fresh way. And I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
Same.
Yep. And let me just say too, this weekend we had a funeral for a mom who did not attend here, but her daughter and family does, and they're more newer to the church. And I think that's an indication of health in a church when there is a need, and maybe you aren't really connected to that person or that family, and yet if you still hear of a need, you're still willing to jump in. And I think that was what we saw on Saturday. People came to help serve. People came to help drop off a meal. So I think that's a pretty powerful indicator of the health of a church, of when the church family hears of a need, even though they might not be directly connected to that person, they're still willing to jump in and help. So thank you to all those who did that, and I know the family really appreciated it. And I think that's just a mark of a healthy, thriving church. When you see a need, you jump in and try to meet it.
So good. And the impact on the family for something like that is so profound. Like when you leave an event like that, and I've been to enough of them, right? Like all three of us in the line of work that we do, we get invited to a lot of funerals. And when you leave a church and you're like, man, that church killed the hospitality. Like, that's a church that I want to go to. And I'm thankful to be a part of one that's like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Closing thoughts. Let's the week ahead and heading into December, what are you most excited about? This is a random question no one's prepared for. What are you most excited about this week and then towards the end of the year?
Yeah. Well, so this week, every month we've been talking about a spiritual practice, right? And so this month is fasting. I don't know if anybody's taking us up on that challenge to fast, but this week, leading into Thanksgiving, I think is an ideal time to fast leading up to Thursday. So let me just put the challenge out there for those people who have never fasted before. Maybe Wednesday, Wednesday lunch to Thanksgiving lunch, dinner would be a great time to learn that practice, experience that practice. Go on the blogs, read those blogs from our G News. I think that helps us understand what we're talking about when we talk about fasting. But that's something I'm looking forward to.
Dust.
Yeah, well, that's really awkward. I was going to talk about my favorite Thanksgiving food, but then you threw in fasting.
No. That's the beauty of it. Then you can eat it.
He's bullying you.
Oh no. No, I mean, my question was going to be like, I just want to know what everybody was excited for like Thanksgiving food, because every family's got those like weird traditions of like, this is the thing we do. Like Dave already dropped his was it cream turkey sandwich?
Yeah, turkey sandwiches, man.
I'm gonna have to look that up and see what that is. I still actually don't know what that is.
Feels like a Worcester thing.
It is a more Amish. You take the turkey and you shred it, and then you put you mix what is it? You make like a roux.
Whatever it is, you're actually making it worse.
Okay, it's good. Google it, everybody. Google it. It's good.
All right. Yeah. Listen, our family's thing that my mom always made before she passed away, but like I'm always trying to keep the tradition alive is the sausage balls. If you guys ever had done those before, it's like you take Bisquick mix and you throw in like cheddar cheese, some milk, you form them into balls, bake them in the oven, and they're like little bites of pure nostalgia. And they are delicious. So I'll bring some to the office. All right. So you guys can try them. We'll share Thanksgiving traditions together.
Nice.
For me, everybody in our house is really excited about our college kid coming home. It's just a different feeling having him come home, and just hasn't been home since June. So it's been a minute. So
awesome.
Yeah, it's good. All right, guys. Well, that's our podcast for today. As always, we're so thankful for you, our church family. Without you, none of this would be worth it. So happy Thanksgiving from all of us to you, praying for what God is going to do around your table. And until next week, we just want to remind you, no one walks alone.